And in this particular lecture, I'm going to cover a number of different things, and a lot of this to some people may seem like way out initially, you know, which it seemed to me, but I tried to gather as much facts as possible outside of the Moors to prove what we're saying. You know, a lot of times people say, well, y'all Moors saying this, but show me something else that's saying what y'all saying, that proves what y'all saying. So I tried to gather as much as possible, and I have a lot of information here to share. I tried to organize as best as possible because a lot of information, and I just tried to put it in the best way so that you could be able to grasp it. I'm going to start off speaking about a man by the name of Horace Greeley. And he was part of a worldwide conspiracy to conceal the information that I'm about to speak on today. And there's a definite reason why this information was concealed. Horace Greeley was the founder and editor of a paper called the New York Tribune, which was located in New York City. This newspaper was a national newspaper as well as international, and it had a profound effect on the consciousness of European people. At the time when this was put together, you know, sometimes we think that Europeans, that, you know, they've been a world power, you know, going way back to so-called Greeks and Romans time, all that's fictional. All that's fictional. They just got themselves together as recently as 1854 to 1865. This is when they finally got themselves together to govern the planet on a global level, as recent as that date. And this is around the time of the Civil War. And at the end of the Civil War, they was finally able to put certain things together to bring us up together. At the time, during Horace Greeley's time, they was in a similar condition that we are in now, in the sense that you had many different white organizations at that time. They were all striving for the uplifting of their people, but they had many different ideologies, many different groups of themselves, all striving and vying with each other, sometimes bitter conflict with each other, in order to achieve that goal, which is the upliftment of their people. The key role that Horace Greeley played was that his paper, his organ, the New York Tribune, was able to gather up all those people and give them a sense of a unified context or paradigm or direction that they was all able to unify themselves behind, regardless to their different ideological differences and so on and so forth. And this is what we're hoping that the Moorish paradigm or the Moorish Renaissance that's taking place now will be able to do. That it will serve as a paradigm that will be able to unify our people in regards to the different ideologies. You know, coming out from New York City, you know, and I sell books in Harlem on 125th Street, as well as in Bed-Stuy in Brooklyn. And being in those two places, I've come in contact with every aspect of the so-called black movement or national, or whatever you want to call it. I've come in contact with every aspect of it. Hebrew Israelites, every sect and division of Islam you could think of, black nationalists, all different types of groups, you know. And it seems like this may be able to unify us behind a certain paradigm. A paradigm is a certain perspective or outlook on the world. And this is what we're about to get into. We're about to have what's known as the paradigm shift. We're about to come into a new paradigm, a paradigm that will allow us to rise our people up and take our rightful place in history. Horace Greeley, prior to Horace Greeley's time, the European, or what we call the white man or whatever, he was known as the red man. And they called themselves red men. As a matter of fact, Horace Greeley was a member of a political party known as the Red Men's Whigs Party, which eventually he promoted to be changed to the Republican Party. The present-day Republican Party originally was called the Red Men's Whig Party. Horace Greeley, as well as Abraham Lincoln, were members of the Red Men's Whig Party. He suggested to them that they change their names to the Republican Party, and as opposed to call themselves red men, call themselves white men. And this was to set up this whole dynamic of white being pure and good and white being bad and inferior, this whole white supremacist mentality or paradigm that was being perfected at this time. Now, just to give you an idea of the power and of the influence of Horace Greeley, this was taken from a book called Horace Greeley in the New York Tribune during the Civil War. And it says in the introduction, it says, all contemporaries, friends, and foes alike testified that the Tribune exerted the greatest influence upon public opinion of any journal in the country during the period under discussion, which was the Civil War period. It goes on to say that the paper furnished the basis of a power national in scope and at times enabled the editor to mold public sentiment more effectively than even the president. Horace Greeley in that paper, the New York Tribune, actually had more influence over the mindset of European people on an international scale than even the President of the United States. Karl Marx was just the London correspondent of the New York Tribune. This was an international thing that took place here. All right? It also says that it would have been difficult to convince the great mass of rural subscribers from western New York to Iowa that the old white-coated philosopher, Horace Greeley, did not pen every line in their political Bible. Herein lies the crux of the Tribune power and influence. Horace Greeley was more than the editor of a great newspaper. He had acquired an enviable reputation as an expounder of political views and had actively sponsored the organization of the Republican Party on a national scale. So Horace Greeley had a great deal of influence. And he was like more or less, let's say, the point man that more or less gathered around him all these different people, covering all different various disciplines, everything from medicine to science to history. Just to give you an example, there's an article I have here called Archaeological Cover-Ups. This is an article that was taken from a magazine called Nexus Magazine. And this is a very good magazine. If you have a chance, get a hold of it. I believe Brother Emiola from the Black Mind Builders sells this particular magazine. And this particular article, Archaeological Cover-Ups, was dealing with the Smithsonian Institute, which was founded a little bit prior or during Horace Greeley times around in 1829. And it starts off, it mentions, it says, most of us are familiar with the last scene in the popular Indiana Jones archaeological adventure film, Raiders of the Lost Ark, in which an important historical artifact, the Ark of the Covenant from the temple in Jerusalem, is locked in a crate and put in a giant warehouse, never to be seen again. I'm sure you all remember that part at the end where they shipped it in. They had all these different boxes marked top secret. It goes on to say, the Smithsonian Institute is an independent federal agency. Sounds familiar? IRS, Federal Reserve, so on. An independent federal agency has been actively suppressing some of the most interesting and important archaeological discoveries made in America. Now, what they were covering up was our history in this hemisphere. At this time, this is the time when they concocted this myth that we were all brought over here on slave ships from Africa to be their slaves. This is one of the biggest lies they ever put together. You're going to see the massive proportions of the lie that they have put forward. Yeah, there were some that were brought here from Africa. But by far, the majority of us were already here. We had a civilization that went from Alaska all the way down to Chile, which they refer to as the ancient mound builders, the one who built the civilizations and built the mounds and pyramids all up and down this hemisphere. And you're going to see further what is the significance and the major role that we played as civilization here in this hemisphere. And the Smithsonian Institute was key in covering up these facts. And then they also mention it here about the Vatican and how they have an underground library in the Vatican. The walls 5 feet thick and 24-hour security. What they hiding down there. And he mentions how they have things down there that will conflict with the church's credibility or perhaps cast the official text in doubt. So they keep these things hidden. And it says, and it goes on to say, it says, when Thomas, the guy's name is Thomas, he was the director of the Eastern Mound Division of the Smithsonian Institute's Bureau of Ethnology. It says, when Thomas came to the Bureau of Ethnology, he was a pronounced believer in the existence of a race of mound builders distinct from the American Indians, the people who they're saying American, with the long stringy hair and so on and so forth. He believed that there was a race of mound builders distinct from the American Indians. However, John Wesley Powell, the director of the Bureau of Ethnology, a very sympathetic man toward the American Indians, had lived with some of these ones who they call Indians, and he felt sorry for them. He felt that they say he felt sorry for them, and they were treated unfairly, and that they should get the credit for this. Now remember, now they were in the process of wiping these people out. So it's easy to give credit to a people that you know you're about to wipe out anyway. It goes on and says the Smithsonian began to promote the idea that Native Americans at that time being exterminated in the Indian Wars were descended from advanced civilizations and were worthy of respect and protection. They also began a program of suppressing any archaeological evidence that led credence to the school of thought known as diffusionism, a school which believes that throughout history there has been widespread dispersion of culture and civilization via contact by ship and major trade routes. Keep that in mind, because remember, Moor means navigator. We were a maritime nation all over the planet. And keep that in mind, because we're going to get deeper into that. This says the school of thought known as diffusionism believes that throughout history there was a widespread dispersion of culture and civilization via contact by ship and major trade routes. It goes on and says, but the Smithsonian opted for the opposite school, known as isolationism. Isolationism holds that most civilizations are isolated from each other and that there has been very little contact between them, especially those that are separated by bodies of water. And this intellectual war that started in 1880s, right around Horace Greeley time. Now, this school of thought, isolationism, gives credence to their whole philosophy of us being so-called third world peoples and them being so-called first world peoples. They're saying this is the first time the world has been unified as what's known as the global village, or unified in economy and trade and so on and so forth. Wrong. There's been two civilizations prior to that in which it was unified by the Moors. First the ancient Moabites or Moabites, and then the Moors. It goes on to say, when the contents of many ancient mounds and pyramids of the Midwest were examined, it was shown that the history of the Mississippi River valleys was that of an ancient and sophisticated culture that had been in contact with Europe and other areas. Not only that, the contents of many mounds revealed burials of huge men, sometimes 7 or 8 feet tall, in full armor with swords and sometimes huge treasures. All this was being found by the Smithsonian. This gets back into the Bible where they talk about these different giants and Nephilim and so on and so forth. And it goes on and says, for instance, when Sparrow Mound in Oklahoma was excavated in the 1930s, a tall man in full armor was discovered along with a pot of thousands of pearls and other artifacts, the largest such treasure so far documented. We have many more treasures here. The elders taught us that the Moors did more building underground than we did above ground here. And you see what we did build above ground, or what's left, what the Dominicans and Franciscan priests did not destroy and vandalize and loot and burn and pillage. And underground, they are aware of the vast underground tunnel networks that we have built underneath this country, where you was able to travel from New York City to California underground without having to come above ground once. And their military has taken over some of these underground facilities, but they could go over so far deep. And they know through different infrared and satellite pictures and so on and so forth, they know that there's other things deeper down that they can't get to. And when the conquistadors came away, they found whole villages and cities empty with people. They didn't know where they went. Oh yeah. Continuing on, it says, he was told by former employees that the Smithsonian, that an employee was dismissed for defending the view of diffusionism. And it said the Smithsonian at one time had actually taken a barge full of unusual artifacts out into the Atlantic Ocean and dumped it into the ocean. This is what they was doing with some of the things that they found. And it mentions here about stone coffins that was discovered in 1892 in Alabama, which were then sent to the Smithsonian Institute and then lost, according to the newsletter. And then going further down, it says, the head curator says, we have not been able to find the specimens in our collections, though records show that they were received. And it says, the Alaskan mound, they found a mound up in Alaska, and it says the Alaskan mound was in fact a graveyard of gigantic human remains consisting of crania and long leg bones. The crania measured from 22 to 24 inches from base to crown. Since an adult normally measures about 8 inches from back to front, such a large cranium would imply immense size for a normally proportioned human. In fact, the habit of flattening the skull of an infant and forcing it to grow in an elongated shape was a practice used by ancient Peruvians, Mayans, flat-headed Egyptians. You see some of the Egyptian pictures where they have the long hair. Even in the South, you know, I heard stories where they used to actually shape the baby's head with their hands. You know, all this is directly related to us. Also, it says that they found statues ranging from less than 1 inch to 6 feet. Now, check this out. Depicting reptiles or dinosaurs, some of them in active association with humans, showing us contemporary with dinosaurs in this hemisphere. And we want to know who was the first people, who's the true Native Americans. There's nobody here standing on this, in this part of this hemisphere that could trace their roots back here further than us. Contemporary with dinosaurs. It goes on to say they also found portrayals of Bigfoot and aquatic monster-like creatures, weird human-animal mixtures. This gets into another lesson that's part of the course where we get into Yakub and how we kind of different types of experimentation in the Pyramid University of Yucatan, Mexico, where they have found all kinds of remnants and artifacts showing all kinds of crosses. We think genetic engineering and gene splicing, in vitro fertilization, we think these are new things. Our ancestors was mastering these things long time ago in the Pyramid University. This is how we made what we call the white race. By our scientists. Ain't no natural selection or none of that made no white race because they was up in the North Pole. What about the Eskimos? Continuing on, right? It's a lot of information. We're going to try and cover as much of this as possible. Now check this out. It says, historian and linguist Carl Hart, editor of World Explorer, then obtained a hiker's map of the Grand Canyon from a bookstore in Chicago. Poring over the map, we were amazed to see that much of the area on the north side of the canyon has Egyptian names. The area around 94 Mile Creek and Trinity Creek had areas with names like Tower of Set, Tower of Ra, Horus Temple, Osiris Temple, Isis Temple. In the Haunted Canyon area were such names as Cheops Pyramid, the Buddha Cloister, Buddha Temple, Manu Temple, and Shiva Temple. All this was found in the Grand Canyon, and they have closed those sections off because they said it's too dangerous. All this is sitting right there to this day. And this is another article from the same magazine that deals with exploration. This is from a front page from the Phoenix Gazette from the 5th of April, 1909. And the title says, Explorations in Grand Canyon, Mysteries of Immense Rich Cavern Being Brought to Light. And it talks about how, it says, Mr. Kincaid found like a cavern, like a crypt, with human heads, solid rock carved by human hands, and tablets and all kinds of things he found in there. And he had to go nearly a mile underground, about 1,480 feet below the surface. The long main passage has been delved into to find another mammoth chamber from which radiate scores of passageways like spokes on a wheel. Up in New York, where you got these different things, you got all kinds of old names like Day Street, D-E-Y, Moore Street, all in the same area, right by Wall Street. Right in the Wall Street area where they found the ancestral burial grounds, you got a Moore Street and a Day Street, D-E-Y. And the elders told us there were 5 groups of Moors here. The Bays, the Days, the Owls, the Eels, and the Alis. And that gets into the 5 civilized tribes, as well as the 5 pairs of sons of Poseidon who governed Atlantis. And we're going to get into that connection also with Atlantis. There was an Indian legend dealing with the Hopi Indians. The original Hopis were our ancestors as well. And it says that in connection with the story, it is notable that among the Hopi Indians, the tradition is told that their ancestors once lived in the underworld in the Grand Canyon. A dissension arose between the good and the bad, the people of the one heart and the people of the 2 hearts. It sound like the Boulay. They have 2 hearts. Or it sound like some of those Uncle Tom Negroes who have 2 hearts. You know what I'm saying? They want to be down with the white man, but they want to be down with us. You know, 2 hearts. And it says that Macheto was their chief, counseled the good ones with the one heart to leave the underground city, but there was no way out. The chief then caused a tree to grow up and pierce the roof of the underworld, and the people of one heart climbed out. They tarried by the Red River, which is in Colorado, and grew grain and corn. They sent out a message to the temple of the sun, asking the blessings of peace, goodwill, and rain for the people of one heart. The messenger never returned. But today at the Hopi villages at sundown can be seen the old men of the tribe on the housetops gazing towards the sun, looking for the messenger. When he returns their lands, their lands and ancient dwelling places will be restored to them. We are those messengers with the feds. We the ones they're looking for. And all those lands will be returned to us. All right? Now, in connection, and I found a book. Now, I kept telling myself, you know, this whole thing, now this is a whole nother deep area that has to be further researched and looked into. You know, something bothered me about this whole thing about Greeks and Romans and these Europeans going way back to 500 BC. I said, something don't sound right here. I had a theory. Something told me that somewhere around Horace Greeley's time is that they talk about this Renaissance and all this. Renaissance, the rebirth of classical culture, Greek and Roman culture, whatever. That wasn't no rebirth of no Greek. That was the birth of it for them. They concocted this thing. At that time, students of the Moors, they were students of the Moors. And they were going around, their artists were going around making sculptures and stuff, saying that these were the ancient Greeks. A lot of these sculptures had heads missing that they replaced. Now I said, there gotta be a book, there gotta be something that will give me some hints. Remember now, because all this information at Horace Greeley's time was kept out of the institutions of higher learning. But you will find it scattered here and there. You will find a sentence here, a paragraph here, a page here. It's scattered. You got to be almost like a detective, but you got to have the context. You got to have the paradigm first to know what you're even looking at. Once you get this particular context or this particular paradigm, a lot of things that you already know will begin to make a lot more sense in this particular context. And I said, there gotta be a book where I can find that, I can uncover, because something just don't sound right. Then I came across something where Erasmus from the so-called Renaissance period was writing letters to other students under the pen name of Cicero. I said, hold up. And then you hear about, for instance, Francis Bacon was one who they called Shakespeare. And he had a literary group, or a secret society, a secret literary group, who were putting out all kinds of works on Moorish science under the pen name of Shakespeare. So I said, what's going on here? Something don't seem right. You got to get the feel for this thing. Now, one day, this is where the ancestors come in, because once you tune in with the ancestors, they will guide you to certain things. The ancestors were constantly, that whole summer, they were guiding me to all kinds of books, and at that time I was teaching the course. And I have some of the packets here. I have about 10 of them, 5 of them already sold. And I was teaching the course at that time, and I was constantly, each week, they were just sending me, and I would just walk to a shelf, bam, pick up a book, and boom, the jewels would be in there. And I wasn't even using the catalog at a certain point. I was just walking in and just pulling stuff out. And I would get to sections, like I would be teaching on a topic like, for instance, constitutional law, and there would be a whole section on that subject, and I say, man, how am I going to get the best book for the class or whatever, you know? And I would go right to a particular book, and it will be exactly the book that sort of like encompasses all the other ones. And it will be exactly the right one. So this is very important that we tune in with the ancestors, because they will lead us and guide us certain things that we need to know at this time. So one day I just got an urge to go to this bookstore, Barnes & Noble, up in Yonkers. And when I went there, I seen 2 nuns. And it just hit my mind, because somebody had told me, one of the elders said that Hakim Bey had got a lot of this information. Hakim Bey, who gave us a lot of this information, got it from a Catholic priest who had this stuff hid. So I thought about that when I seen them. I walked a little bit further, and there it was, the book I was looking for, a big, gigantic book, and on the top of the book it says fake. And it talks about all the fakes, artifacts that were being faked by these Europeans. And this is one excerpt from it, and it says the 19th century, the great age of faking. And this is right around the time of Horace Greeley. And it says the 19th century saw a fundamental shift in the relationship of Western culture to the past. And it says a man by the name of Horace Walpole, sounds almost familiar, Horace Greeley, Horace Walpole and his circle had discovered the romance of the past, even in objects surviving from the period of barbarism between the fall of the Roman Empire and the Renaissance. Their discovery arriving on the eve of the Industrial Revolution, a period in which spread of affluence was combined with the increasing desire to escape from the present, because they know they didn't have no history at that present time, produced an explosion in collecting. From classical antiquities and old master paintings, the mania spread to encompass the chivalric glamour of the Middle Ages, the sculpture and decorative arts of the Renaissance, 18th century ceramics, 17th century metalwork, and even towards the end of the century. So in other words, at this time, they was dealing with all this that they have spaced out over hundreds of years, the Renaissance. They was dealing with all this at this time, and this is the time when they was concocting this whole thing, this whole false history. And it says the collective mania created a paradise for dishonest dealers. As each new craze took a sudden imbalance between supply and demand, create the perfect opportunity for such people to peddle their fakes before a pool of expertise had been created. It says, craftsmen and some artists were themselves bemused and sometimes embittered by the fact that this old work had suddenly replaced them. So what they did to maintain a living, they started making fakes of so-called old stuff because the stuff they was making contemporary, it wasn't selling. And they seen it was such a craze for so-called antiquities that they began faking these things. All right? So that just will make you understand sometime when you see, you know, they talk about this Greek and this Roman from 500 BC, all that's fictional. And what they did, Hajj Greek time, is also they shifted time. They added 580 years to our calendar. According to our calendar, this is the year 1414. They added 580 years to throw you off. So things that you, for instance, let me get into this right here. This is another book. And see, there's certain things, you know, being up in New York, you know, I've seen Afrocentricity come, reach its peak, but it has not been able to answer the problems of our people. Brothers and sisters still out there killing each other off. They'll come up to you with a big African in the chest and kill you. They don't care. So it has not been able to meet or solve the problems of our people. And like New York was the center of Afrocentricity. I was out there with the books, I seen the whole thing. You know what I'm saying? But there were certain limiting factors within it. For one, Afrocentricity means, when you say Afrocentric or centered, that means you're just centering on Africa. And you're excluding a lot of other things. There were certain books, certain things that you wouldn't look into. For instance, I got this information from a book by a guy named Barry Feld. He's a Harvard professor. And he was talking about a lot about Leif Erikson and the Vikings and all that stuff like that. So you in Afrocentricity, you see someone on the Vikings, I don't know about that. That ain't got nothing to do with me. That's some white people. Those ones who they're calling Vikings and Danes were Moorish navigators. And in this book, that, you know, if you was of what people mindset you wouldn't even look into, he has a map right here, just to start with this map. And he has listed Libyans, this is North America. And this is a Harvard professor. Libyans, Norse, Greek, Cretans, Iberians, Jews, Celts, all that here in North America. And he says, he talks about the Iroquois Confederacy, for instance. He said the Iroquois are believed to have reached North America after most of these settlers have been made, possibly from South America around 1200 AD, passing up the Mississippi to drive an enclave into the Algonquin area. And the Iroquois Confederacy was a very important branch of our people because they had a model of a federal government that the Europeans patterned themselves after. George Washington Benjamin Franklin. There's a book called Indian Givers that talks about that. There's also another book called The Secret Destiny of America by Manly P. Hall. All right, and I'm just going to quote some things that was in this book that relates to us. Just give me a moment to get to the particular pages that I want. He had a chapter in here called Arabs Before Islam. Now, this is very important because this shows you, you know, something struck me as strange also. I said if the Moors just came about in the 711 AD and invaded Spain and stuff like that, who were the people that the Romans were referred to as Moors? If the Romans and the Greeks were before Islam, Muhammad and Arabs and all that stuff like that, then how were the Greeks and Romans referring to a people contemporary with themselves as Moors? And I said, something's not clicking here, something's not right. Having this paradigm, how they shifted history, you see what I'm saying? You will look, and it seems to me, and more research, like I said, more research has to be done. When they were referring to Carthage, they were referring to the Moors. And Rome was those so-called Franciscans that we were fighting against. You see? And there's a space there of about 800 years. So I said, wait, how does that space 800 years get in there, right? Then I came across something else by another European scholar by the name of Emanuel Velikovsky. I'm sure some of you may have heard of Velikovsky. He was looked down upon by all his peers at that time. And now they're coming around to agree with what he's saying. He wrote a book called Ramses II in His Times. And in it, he dropped some major bombs. He proved how Ramses II and Nebuchadnezzar, who according to most Orthodox history is separated by about 800 years, how they were contemporary, how they were at the exact same time, and how when they refer to the Hittite Empire, the Hittites, and Syria and so on and so forth, they call it the forgotten or mysterious empire. That wasn't no forgotten mysterious. That was the Chaldean Empire. So there was a space, so somewhere along the line, 800 years was added. Now if you factor that into the equation, that will bring Carthage right up to 711 AD with the Moors. The 800-year difference. See, they were playing, the European was a master. What he was doing during this period of time is that he was grafting a history. When the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that he was given 6,000 years to rule the earth, he didn't rule this earth for 6,000 years. He was given dominion or jurisdiction over 6,000 years worth of history. When you look in the books, all his history books start off with historical times as 4,000 BC, which up to now would be 6,000 years. When you look in the King James Version of the Bible, it starts off 4004 BC. So what he did was manipulate and graft and change up 6,000 years worth of history. The grafting process, when you take a nectarine orange, navel orange that don't have no seeds in it, it's not natural. It cannot perpetuate itself. There's no seed for you to plant. So what they have to do is take a branch, slice it diagonally, take a regular tree, a real orange tree with seeds and everything, cut one of its branches diagonally, and sew it on or tie it onto it, and it will grow and sustain itself off the roots of that original tree. This is the grafting process. This is what these Europeans did. They didn't have no history, just like that orange with no seeds. So they had to graft themselves onto already existing histories to give themselves a semblance of antiquity. They had no history. So they grafted themselves. The original people who inhabited the region that they refer to as Greek was us, dealing with the Mycenaean and Minoan Moors, who were navigators. The ones who inhabited the region that they refer to as Rome were the Etruscans, who were us. You see? So they had to concoct this false history for them to rise to be in the place of power where they're at right now. They ran into a problem. They found some tablets or whatever that had ancient Libyan or Numidian script. And they never could interpret these things. Then one day, they found out that Arabic was the key to it. But that threw them, and they said, wait, this is something 200-something BC. The Arabs didn't come till later on to 700. How was Arabic dealing with that? You see? And this was the key to unlocking these particular scripts, and so they could interpret it, which means that, now they try to say that there was Arabs in North Africa or these different places before Islam. No, there wasn't Arabs. These languages all part. We used many different languages. Hakim Bey said that Latin was one of our ancient languages. We always associate Latin with European people, or what they call the Indo-European languages. Those are our ancient languages, going into ancient Sanskrit and so on and so forth. We had different languages for different purposes. Latin was a legal, scientific language, and Arabic was a more poetic, dealing with more subtle, conveying more subtle ideas and concepts. The so-called adobe houses that you see in Mexico, the Pueblo Indian, you see the exact same thing in North Africa. The exact same type of houses constructed the exact same way. And it makes sense, because if you, like I said, if you join those two parts together, what they call Libya, all that was all connected with America. It was all one thing. So naturally, you're going to have the same type of houses, the same type of climate, everything. And even the Dogon, the same type of thing, built in the side of the cliff, so on and so forth. The same thing. It's all one knowledge.
And the Dogon mythology and the entire thing is identical to the Hopi Indians. If you look at the pictures of the Hopi Indians and look at the Dogon, it's identical.
Same people, same technology.
We found a Washita Street here at North Highland in Atlanta. A Washita Street, right off of North Highland.
You'll be surprised. This is, see, they would love for all you to go back to Africa. and give up the wealth and birthrights to this land here, they had to perpetuate that myth. And because they would know that once you realize who you are, you will claim your birthrights to this land right here that belonged to your ancestors. Imagine how mad your ancestors must be to be buried in these grounds and see you chasing after another land other than the land that you were born on. And you wonder why you kept so much hell and all so many things that happened to you. Because you run in the wrong direction. Not to say anything wrong with our brothers. Those are our brothers and sisters on the other side of the Atlantic. The Atlantic is like a big mirror, cosmic mirror. What's on one side is on the other side. Ain't no difference. The elders told us that the original now is right here, Old Man Mississippi. The Missouri is the blue and the Ohio is the white now. And where the two come together, they got a city there to this day called Cairo. And the whole region over there, as a matter of fact, to this day they call Little Egypt. The elders also said that in this hemisphere you have 7 cities. The 7 churches which are mentioned in the book of Revelations. The 7 churches which are in Asia. And those 7 cities go from St. Louis up to Chicago, over to Detroit, down into Cleveland, Ohio, over to Pittsburgh, over to Philadelphia, and up into Boston. And if you connect the dots of those 7 cities, they give you the constellation of Big Dipper, the Great Bear, which was referred to as Moena, which is also a name that sometimes we call Moorish sisters, Moena. And this is what that particular and it was said by the elders, whoever rules those 7 cities rule the planet. Those are 7 key cities. And until this day, one of the cities still has the same name in the book, City Philadelphia. And Philadelphia is in what? Pennsylvania, which is the Keystone State. And when you look in the book of Revelations under Philadelphia, it says that you have the keys of David. That which you open if no man shut up, and that which you shut up no man openeth. And in Philadelphia, what do you see there? They call it the city of brotherly love because that's what we handed the keys to our federal government, to the European Masons. And you see the Liberty Bell. Because if you take this and turn it inside out, you got the gong, you got the Liberty Bell. And you wonder why it's cracked. When your liberty was taken from you, that's why it's cracked. You see? The Liberty Bell, and they also refer to the feds as the Liberty Cap. When you see that soft cap that they refer to as the Liberty Cap that's red, that's the feds. And then you look at the coat of arms. The elders also told us that what they called here in this hemisphere the Spanish Empire was in reality the Moorish Empire. And then you look at the coat of arms for El Salvador. You see the fez on top of it. You look at the coat of arms for Haiti. The fez is on it. Look at the coat of arms for Cuba. The fez is on it. Don't take my word for it. Go see it for yourself. The fez is sitting right up on there with a halo around it, just like the all-seeing eye on the dollar bill. The same thing, because this is the pyramid, the all-seeing eye. This has a deep significance. You'll be surprised when you put this up on your head. Watch the responses that you get from Europeans, any people. I don't care where they come from. When we be standing there 125th Street, all the brothers, we be out there, and all you see is feathers out there. Germans, they all come by, they look, they're like, man, the Moors, they awaken, they realizing who they are now. They come to, I don't care what country, Pakistan. The rulers of my country, they wear that. Africans come to me. Only big chiefs can wear that in my country. This was a sign of nobility of the rulers of this planet. Continuing on, the things we built in some of those 7 cities, the Old Man Mississippi, coming down, this region down here is known as ancient Egypt. Headquarters, Memphis, Tennessee. Memphis, the Memphite theology. Oh, that's right here. Oh, that's right here. The 5 Great Lakes. 5 lakes that were man-made by our ancestors that contain half of the world's fresh water supply. And that whole region over there is known as the breadbasket of the world. We fed the whole planet from there. And the elders also said that the original Mecca was Chicago, the center of all food, wheat, grain, and livestock distribution for the planet. And until this day, it's still that way. So we got to realize where we standing at right now and who we really are. When those Moors seen that we were falling from power, they took certain Europeans and initiated them and made them mystic Turks, chief protectors of the sacred shrines. They're not the owners. You had to be a master mason to be up in the federal government. And their duty was, when we seen that we were falling, we said, well, and they were coming to power, we said, let's initiate a group of them and put them there to protect our sacred shrine from the Catholics who would have destroyed everything up in here. And look at the Kennedy who was killed. What was he, a Catholic? Can't be no Catholic to be up in our sacred shrine, dealing with religious mystery. We deal with science of mathematics from 0 to 9, zodiac and geometry, minus religious superstition. We don't get into that. We deal with universal science. They're waiting for you to come and claim what's rightfully yours. We sitting back, I'm a Negro, I'm a color, I'm a black, I'm African. Hey, when you come to them with that, they say, look, go back and study some more, come back when you're ready. Because this was given to me by Moors. The title of this says Moor. If you don't come correct, you're not getting nothing. And the FBI, I got a picture of Hoover. What the fact? Let me just get this picture out here. So you can see, I'm getting a little bit into the other lecture here, but I just want you to see this. If I can find it. And here you see a picture. Just give me a second. There's so much information, you know. I'm just trying, I just wish people could see. I did about 15,000, 20,000 hours of research over the last 12 years. And I've seen things, I'm just trying to get it to the people so everybody else can see what I've seen. Because I've seen some stuff that you would be surprised. I can't find it right this second, but I will eventually show it to you. But it's a picture of J. Edgar Hoover with the feds on it. And you know, for many decades, for all intents and purposes, he was the federal government. And he said, well, then why was he coming down on the black people? The elders mentioned that there was a Moor up in Cleveland, I think, who was mixing this Moorish teachings with black nationalism. And I heard that the FBI stepped to the brother and said, listen, it was your fathers who put us in place to protect us when y'all fell from power. And we will kill anybody or deal with anybody who advocates overthrow. I don't care if they call them, if they're white, they're mafia, whatever. So they said, you better talk to that brother. See, we got to understand what we're dealing with here and who we really are. They know who when they see you with this on your head, believe me, they know that you know who you are. And they respect you properly for that. You'll be surprised at the response you get. And it's not even about that. It's about us uplifting ourselves and returning ourselves to the right place so we can get the planet back on track. Like I said, when the cats away, the mice will play. That's what's been going on. While we've been sleeping, this beast's been ruining our planet.
You know what is very important about it? I know at least everybody in this area here knows about the King Arthur Plan. And if you look at the King Arthur Plan, every organization on there, the
Black Muslims,
everybody but the Moors.
That's right. You won't see no Moors listed on that. You won't see no Moors listed on none of them organizations there. Because if you're a Moor, you know who you are. This is yours anyway. You just got to wake up and claim what's rightfully yours. And what I'm giving you now will give you the historical basis to substantiate your claim. This is ours. And what the Empress has done in Louisiana is this example. That's set the precedent what's going to happen, a lot more of what's going to happen as we begin to claim our land here in this hemisphere. Our brothers all up and down this hemisphere. We got to realize who we are. We're over 100 million strong. Over that, way over that amount in this hemisphere. If we realize who we are and wake up and do what we got to do on this planet, and we claim this, our brothers sisters claim Africa, claim that over there, we can get this planet back on track the way it's supposed to be. But time is short, you know. A lot of things, they have a lot of things. See, he was given power. As long as you as long as you don't realize who you are as a Moor, and you call yourself black, Negro, all this other stuff, he has the right to do whatever he want to do to you. He could do anything to you. Anything. And this is what he's doing now. I mean, you see what's happening now. Just to diverge for a minute, you know, just so we can see what's taking place here and how critical we at a very important junction in time right now. They closed down the military. Janet Reno, who's the Attorney General, said that they was going to use the closed down military bases as work camps. Now, what has happened is that the prison system has replaced the factories in the white communities. And guess what? We are the raw materials of this factory. This is how all the white men that lost them jobs or whatever, the factories closed down, now they open up a prison. So now they're correctional officers, and they got to make the uniforms and suits and all. Those are jobs. And we're the raw materials. We're being set up. We like cattle being led to the slaughterhouse. Right up in New York, New Jersey, in that region up there, they forced everybody to get immunizations for measles. You couldn't attend college. When I walked into campus in the fall semester, they had a list of everybody's name who didn't get shots, saying you cannot come on here if you didn't get your shot. I said, what? Now they forced the people. Now all of a sudden there's a massive outbreak of measles on the college campuses. A state of emergency. Now, does it seem a coincidence? You just did vaccinations, and all of a sudden there's an outbreak? And then all the kids are talking about, I'm going to get my vaccination shot. Cattle being led to the slaughterhouse and don't realize it. You know, in terms of the gang warfare and all the different things that's going on. For instance, Clinton just recently said that they're going to pass a bill. They want to pass a bill giving the police the right to go up into public house without search the house with no warrant, nothing, because of what's happening in Chicago. Think about that for a minute. You're talking about a police state. And the thing about it, we are calling for the police state. They know they can't afford. We're saying, man, crime is too much in my neighborhood. Oh, man, I'll give up the right of privacy for the right to live. You are calling for a police state. And they say, we'll oblige you. We'll give it to you. That's what you want. You know, so we got to wait. Things is happening. So many things is happening now. They passed so many laws. This, that, this, the state. We got to declare independence from United States society and build ourselves. I'm going to get into that more towards the end. Let me just continue on. And this book just gets into all types of artifacts, hieroglyphics that was found. As a matter of fact, to show you how this is one world of our empire, the recent edition of Nexus magazine has an article in here that deals with, it says, Mystery Rock Carvings, Proof of Atlantis. And it shows you in Australia, they found hieroglyphics in Australia. Straight up hieroglyphics, cartouches and all. We had a vast global network and the technology was advanced. Here's a picture of model airplanes that were found in Central America. Aerodynamically built, look like modern airplanes. We was dealing with space flight, the whole nine. None of these things was new to us. I have a videotape here, the facing pyramids on Mars. And what they did, this is a lecture given inside the United Nations. There's a whole complex they found up there with numerous structures. When they measured the angles of those and the measurements of that complex up there, they gave key formulas of physics and geometry. And they matched up with the megalithic structures we built down here, the pyramids, Stonehenge, so on and so forth, showing this was all one technology we was dealing with. Ain't nothing new under the sun. We was dealing with all these things that we thinking is new now. We always had knowledge of these things. Let me just read you this article here. Oh, and also to show you something else, showing you the discrepancy in regards to chronology, there's a whole section of books from the Bible, whatever that they call Apocrypha, books that was left out from the Bible. One of the books is a book called the Book of Baruch. And you begin to see why they left these books, because it contradicts a lot of what they're saying. This book, so-called, deals with Nebuchadnezzar and the so-called Babylonian captivity. But you're going to find out that when they talk about Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonian captivity of the children of Israel, the children of Yaqub, it was really dealing with the period of time when the Moorish nation had enslaved the Europeans. We enslaved them before they enslaved us. Now I know, hold up. That's right. We had them enslaved on a global level for 360 years. This is why they was able to enslave us, because according to the divine law of retribution, what goes around, come around. And this is why the Moorish Empire fell. And you said, wait, they declared their independence from Britain. You think they declared their independence in 1776? When they declared their independence, they declared their independence from the Moorish nation. And when I first heard, I said, oh, that's crazy. What are you talking about, the Moorish nation? It was the white people from England. I found a book called Diplomatic Relations with the Barbary Powers from 1776 up. And in it, it says that in 1776, Britain, France, Germany, Denmark, Italy, all these countries were paying tribute to Morocco. They were paying tribute to the Moors. You don't pay tribute unless you're a conquered nation. They were paying tribute to the Moors. And we were using them as mercenary forces. This thing is deep. Now, dealing with the Babylonian captivity of the Jews, and this is a time when they learned a lot, the children of Israel, this time when they learned a lot of what they learned. Now, I'm distinguishing between the 12 tribes of Israel, which we are, and the children of Israel, or Yaqub, whose name was changed to Israel after he did his experimentation. And they were enslaved by the Moroccan Babylonian Empire, who were Moors. And to show you how they fooled around with time, it says here, as will be shown, now this is the book of Baruch, it says, as will be shown the sequel tragic events of 586 BC, which herald the exile, constitute a thin historic drapery which invests the yet greater tragedy of the Jewish race in AD 70. It is now generally accepted by recent critics that Nebuchadnezzar and Belshazzar represent the persons of Vespasian and Titus, which is around 70 AD. So here, they're talking about something that happened, they say 586 of BC, dealing with Nebuchadnezzar. Then here they're saying it's really dealing with Vespasian and Titus. And then if you take it further, you find it's really dealing with something else. So you see the games that was being played here with chronology and geography. And see, we can't accept the chronology and geography they have given us and just be content with just saying it was black people. No, let's question the whole geography and chronology they have given us. Here's another article. This was taken from a book called The Science of the Mexican Pyramids. Now, I think Brother Emiola has the one dealing with the Egyptian pyramids. He should try and also get the one with the Mexican pyramids. There was an article in it, and it shows all these Moors whose head was decapitated and put on poles and put on sticks. And check out what it says. It says, designed for the detection and punishment of heretics, the Inquisition was used as a giant pork barrel for the enrichment of crown, church, and inquisitors, while cheerfully eliminating dangerous radicals. Now listen to who these dangerous radicals are. Those who have been taught medicine, geography, rhetoric, chemistry, physics, mathematics, and astronomy by Moorish philosophers. Moorish philosophers. I'm just going to wait till you put it in tape in. And this decapitation was taking place in Mexico. This ain't in Spain. This is in Mexico. Dates. It doesn't have a date on this particular page here, but I'm sure it's around 1600, somewhere around that time. Somewhere around that time, time of the conquistadors and so on and so forth. And it says that the ones who did Inquisition was conferred, dangerous radicals were considered were the ones who was teaching mathematics, geography, rhetoric, all these things at that time. These are the ones who they were decapitating. It says the Inquisition was also an excuse to rid the planet of such organized mystics as Illuminati, pantheists, Manichaeans, and Albigensians. So Moors, all these are represented all in one breath as one thing. This Inquisition was for all these so-called people. This is one example of the connection between them. And it says, all the accused were presumed guilty before trial. Now, these are so-called Christians. All the guilty were presumed guilty before there was even a trial. Sounds familiar. Sounds like what's happening to us now. A trial which took place in absolute secrecy. Sounds like the backroom police stations. The defendant was afforded no counsel. Accuser and judge were the same person. The names of witnesses against the defendant were withheld from him. Women, children, and slaves could not be used as witnesses by the defendant, but could be used by the prosecution, who could obtain them by torture. And it says minor penalties could be commuted, paid off, bribery, all that. We know the corruption already. And then it says, now check this, it says, the victim's goods were subject to confiscation and were incorporated into the royal and church domains. We talk about reparations. And this is Europeans saying where our wealth went to. It says that the victim's goods, subject to confiscation, we're talking about land, gold, everything, subject to confiscation were incorporated into the royal crown and the church domains. The inquisitors who paid no taxes and gave no account of confiscation effectively took their share. As a deterrent to possible opposition in New Spain, Mexico, 34 Negroes, including 4 women, were hanged and decapitated in Mexico City. So as a deterrent against the Moors, Illuminati, all the stuff like this, as a deterrent, they hanged 30 Negroes and nobody else. So what is that telling you? That was us, the Moors, the Illuminati, the illuminated ones, who was teaching geography and all this. You see, you got to read between the lines, because they'll tell you by so many words. They can't outright tell you, because they're under open obligation not to. They can't tell you who you are outright. They could never tell you that you were Moors and that you had a Moorish empire just prior to their 1776 Declaration of Independence. They can't tell you that. Their system is based on you not knowing that, and they maintain themselves. Here's a picture. And we think over there, they switch geography around. We think over there is England. The elders told us that the original England is over here in Virginia, Jamestown, King James, Jamestown, Virginia, and that what they over there call England now, we used to call Albion or Albion. That hit me. I said, what are you talking about? Then I came across a book, and it says, Sir Francis Drake claimed the land of his. They're talking about California. It says that Drake claimed the land in the name of his queen, Elizabeth I. He called it Nova Albion. Nova meaning new, and Albion being an old name from England, for England. So it is by their own scholars that the original name of that place was Albion or Albine because of the white cliffs of Dover. Albino, Albine meaning white. Those white cliffs of Dover. So all this stuff is starting to click and make sense, and the stuff that just seems so far-fetched on one hand, upon doing the research, starts to make a lot more sense. Here, I'm just going to show some pictures here, because a lot of the children, a lot of the Europeans, famous Europeans you see in history or whatever, were actually the mulatto mixed breed children of Moorish nobles and rulers and white women who were in their harems. See, this is where the bleaching out took place. And people who you see in early history here in America, like John Hanson, who were really Moors, were passing as if they were white. What happened was that white women were sold on a global level. They were sold on a global level to Moorish harems all over the world. And the mulatto mixed breed children that you seen came through them, so-called this is where you get the so-called Turks, Arabs, Japanese, Indians. These are the mixed children of us on a global scale. Now, people say, what do you mean we had the Europeans enslaved and we were selling white women on a global scale? There's a lesson here. This is one of the lessons from the packet. This is the fourth one of Big Ben Bay. And in it, like what they say, a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? Here's a picture taken from J. Rogers' book, and here you see a Moor with a fez on selling a white woman into slavery. A Moor with a fez on. This is one of the reasons why the Moors fell, because we did it to our own sometime also. Here you see a harem scene with white women in a Moorish harem. All right? So, a picture's worth 1,000 words. Now, look at some of these people here. This right here is King Philip II, Philip III, son of King Philip II. And you can just tell by the lips and everything. He looked like one of our Spanish brothers or whatever. And here is a picture of King Philip II. These various rulers up in Europe. See, originally they were all so-called blackamoors, what they call blackamoors, and eventually through the bleaching out process, they became what's known as tawny Moors, or lighter-skinned Moors. That's where you get this whole thing about tawny Moors. Here's Alexander Farnese, Duke of Parma, the great Spanish general. All mulatto Moors. And they were more refined than the other savage Europeans because they grew up in the courts of the Moors. So they learned how to do like us, and how to behave amongst us. And here's even a picture of Sir Francis Drake, so-called, bad guy. You can see too. He was a mulatto Moor, if you look carefully. I know brothers, they look just like him. I have a picture here also of King John, the so-called signer of the Magna Carta. And here you see he looked just like a brother with two brothers standing in the back of him. King John of England, who so-called signed the Magna Carta. This thing is so deep. I mean, so much history has been left out. Here's a picture of Vesalius, one of the great scientists dealing with anatomy and everything. And you can see, I mean, he has an afro. He has an actual afro. So, I mean, there's no doubt he got an actual afro in this picture. And he was the founder. All these great people we see in Europe, most of these were the sons of Moorish rulers and European women. And then I'm going to get into the other class you hear about the Bilderberg group and what's known as the black nobility. And I said, wait, Rothschild, why are Europeans, so-called white Europeans, call themselves black nobility? Where did that come from? And then you get into J. Rogers' book, Sex and Race, and you look at the coat of arms of the nobility up in Europe, Germany, France. all these are Moors. Let me just, to prove that they were Moors, and I'm using the specific word Moors. Now, I'm not saying black, I'm saying they were Moors. Dealing with nationality, it says Negroes in the coat of arms of noble family. And you know, with Jerry Rogers, you just got to get past the word Negro when you read his books. He got heavy information in his books. You just got to overlook that little word Negro. And here's the noble families of, these are the French, Italian, Spanish, and Polish noble families. And look at the names. Morelensia, Moret, Moretti, Moreau, Moresque, Moors. All Moors, ruling all throughout Europe. These are the ones from Dutch and Belgian families. And look at the names again. Moreau, Morreal, Moor, straight up Moor, M-O-O-R, straight up. Moors ruling Europe. You know, so there's a whole history. There's a whole aspect of our history. I'm going to read this part now, too, coming from a book. The desk is starting to get messy now, but that's supposed to happen. This is the heavy book here, Ancient and Modern Britain. And if you can't get your hands a hold of this, there's 2 volumes. And through almost every page of these 2 volumes, all he talks about is Moors, how we were ruling up in Britain, Scotland, Ireland, all those places we were ruling up into. Those so-called marauding bands of gypsies, Egyptians. Some of them are the deposed Moorish nobility, that when they were deposed from power, they became so-called marauding bands of gypsies. This is why you see a gypsy sometime in Europe, dark-skinned, dirt poor with a title of nobility. Where did you get this title of nobility? They were the former rulers who were deposed from power. Now in this book, he mentions in here, and because, see, there's a whole part of our history, we don't get into all this. What about all this up here? All up into here. All this. We was working this up here. All this up in here. That was all us. All our navigators was all up in here. We just look at this. All of this down here. All that. It's all this. In this book he talks about, he mentions here, you heard about the Druids, so-called builders of Stonehenge. As you told me, I said, wait, England is, all right, Stonehenge is in England, Stonehenge is in England, and England is ruled by white people. England is for white people. There's white people there. So they built it? And were they the ancient Druids themselves? No. Those are Moorish priests. You know, high science.
And also there's a book out on Druid religion is dealing with Isis and Osiris.
Exactly.
You know,
and it'll make sense because when you're looking up in England, they got places in England called Little Egypt. Actually called Egypt. Which the word gypsies come from. Gypsies. And then he says in here, so he says, this is a white person now, David McRitchie is a white person now. So then the Druids and Druidesses, because they were priestesses also, who had colleges in an island near the coast of Brittany, who professed a knowledge of the future, who the men at least were figured as bearded like goats, with a goatee, just like you see the dog on, and who worshipped the gods, were dark-skinned, curly-haired Iberians of the tribes of Silures and Damanine. This seems a fair inference. In other words, he's outright telling you who these people are. They were dark-skinned with curly hair. All right? I'm going to read a couple of things here just to give you an idea. This thing is just action-packed. This is too much. This is too much in this book. These books. He drops too much about this. Definition of Moor. Any Latin dictionary, any old one at least, will tell you that Moorish is a Moor, a blacker Moor, or a tawny Moor. And Shakespeare uses the word Moor as a synonym for Negro. And then he goes on here and he mentions how, remember I said Moors as navigators. And you will find the word Moor always associated with water. He says here, therefore, if the word Moor and its variations were primarily the sea, and Latin or Spanish, the mare or whatever, means sea or whatever, mare, more, all the same thing, primarily the sea, and gave its name to a nation of sea rovers, or if the case were reversed, and the sea became associated with the name of a great seafaring race, or if the case were reversed, and the sea became associated with the name of a great seafaring race, Moors, then a wider vista opens out before us. There has been much written about the Mannanin and other water people. And they talk about places named Moravia, connected with the Moors, Morini, Moray in India, Maury or Mauritania in Africa, to show you the vastness of this empire. The Maori, South Pacific, Moravia, Romans, it's so much. Now check this out. Now this bugged me out. This is in the bottom. This is not even part of the book. This is like a footnote on the bottom. Now this is heavy because in this, he mentions Europeans landed on shore in New England in 16-something. And getting into a battle with 700 Moors. And in the paragraph, he uses the word Moor and Indian interchangeably, as if he's talking about the same person. Check it out. He says, in a brief narrative of the encounters between the early colonists of New England and the native Indians, I find it stated that these unfortunate gentlemen were intercepted by 700 Moors, with whom they fought for the space of 4 hours, so not only they too, but Captain Sharp and 51 Christians more lay dead upon the place. And again, that at Buttocks, 10 miles away from Seconch, on the 16th of May, was a little skirmish between Moors and Christians, wherein there was, of the latter, Christians, 3 slain and 2 wounded, and only 2 Indians killed. So they use the word Indian and Moor, native Indian and Moor interchangeably. It's some of the same people, us. It's right there in black and white. This is Europe. It's not a Moor writing. This is a European writing this. Then we want to know why. Well, why are so many Europeans up in England and all that place, Denmark and all that stuff like that? Got the answer right in here. He says the Marsh troopers or Mosses, these were Moors. Marsh troopers, you look at them with Highlander, all those are Moors. Marsh troopers, Highlanders, all that, Moors. Those Marsh troopers or Mosses are thus revealed to us as a race of men so different from the civilized inhabitants of Scotland that the both of them could not be tolerated. It says, but were either killed or transported. Then it also says that the treatment they received was so analogous to that experienced by their kindred across the Atlantic, talking about so-called Indians, being relocated, Trail of Tears. And talking about the Moors over here being relocated. And he says that the treatment they received was so analogous to that experienced by their kindred across the Atlantic that the resemblance hardly needs to be pointed out. And then he says the native Moors or Indians. And then he says a king by the name of Malcolm IV removed them all from the land of their birth and scattered them throughout the other districts of Scotland, both beyond the hills and on this side thereof, so that not even a native of the land, not even a native of that land abode there, and he installed therein his own peaceful people. Sounds familiar? So they take you now. This is what was happening down in the so-called Civil War, what's happening down. They were actually taking your land. You wasn't bred from Africa, you was already here. They would come seize your land, relocate you, sell you over here to be enslaved, and take the land. Pushing you further and further west. And let me just read this also from ancient modern Britain with regards to who were the Danes. And they talk about the Danes conquering Britain in 876 AD. Now check this out. Their technology, the Danes, Moorish navigators, in 876 AD, their technology was so advanced that the white people thought that they called them magi or magicians. And it says in here, with regards to their approach, with regards to the approach of their ships, it says, give me a second to get the page. It says, Simeon of Durham tells us that their approach was heralded by fearful prodigies, which terrified the wretched nations of Anglos, inasmuch as horrible lightnings and dragons in the air and flashes of fire were often seen glancing and flying to them. Look what they're saying. They heard terrible thunderings as their ship approached, and they seen dragons flying to and fro in the air. And then it says, now although all this was mystery and magic to the wretched nation of Anglos, it would not be so to any civilized modern people. Horrible lightnings and dragons in the air and flashes of fire glancing and flying to and fro, accompanied with fire rain, that is by no means an example. These are the ordinary adjuncts of modern warfare. They were launching artillery, modern artillery in 876 AD. when the ships were they was boom, boom, boom. They was hearing modern artillery being launched. The dragons with tails are flying to and fro in the air with actually missiles being launched. That's the type of technology we was dealing back then. They were we were magicians. They called us magi. We were so powerful, we had them, just during the time I was saying, like we had them enslaved, that we made them pay us a tribute, daily tribute. This is where you get the word blackmail. The tribute that they had to pay to the Moors is called blackmail. That's what it was called. That's where you get the whole thing black. That was the tax that we put on the Europeans. So there's a whole nother area of our history that we have not looked into. I'm just scratching the surface right now. It's so much more to it. There's so much more to it. And what I want to do is just touch on a couple miscellaneous things, just to show you also, just new developments is coming out every time. The last class, the course that I taught, we graduated over a dozen students. And what's been happening is that, and it was from all walks of life. Some were Masons, some were Hebrew Israelites, some were this, some were that. And once they got this context, now they all coming, you know, they constantly bringing me new material every day, new things that they're finding. We constantly, just the other week, I just brought this the other week. And Civil War magazines, right? And on the inside here, and I'll have this up in the front, you could take a picture, look at it. They have a picture of a battle that took place during the Civil War. And when you look at what's on the heads of the fighters, you see blue and red fezzes. Clear as day, blue and red fezzes on their heads. Then I got the other magazine, and they have a picture here of another person fighting in the Civil War. Let me see what's on his head. The fez. This is in this hemisphere. Now, these particular units or regiments were what was known as Zouave troops. What is that about? I gotta look into it. What is Zouave troops fighting in the Civil War? These Zouave troops were so-called Algerians. Now, what is Algerians doing fighting over here in North America? Algerians, fezzes and all, Zouaves. This is where they got the word suave or suave from the word Zouave. They were known as some of the most fierce fighters in this war. They were just known as being fearless. This is where they talk about where they didn't like their guns. They just threw down their guns and just attacked with knives. They was just fearless. I mean, just knowing that it was a Zouave troop, you was struck fear. You know what I'm saying? So we just got this information. Now we're looking deeper into that aspect of it. And then I came across something else, and this bugged me out. This is something brief, but it just bugged me out. And I got this from an older Nexus magazine, and in it they did a series called "The History of Banks," history of banking. And it wasn't even the article was not even about this. It's not even about what I'm about to read. He just said this in passing, and the way he said it was as if like, you know, I don't even have to justify this. I don't have to prove this. This is just known. Check out what he said. He said, there was a hue and cry in the newspapers of the Northeast banking interests to execute the president of the vanquished Confederate States of America in the South. For 2 years, the president of the South was kept in a dark, wet, cold cell in the side of an earthen bank in Fortress Monroe. He was an ill and broken man when put there. He should have died and was expected to die. When it was apparent that there was no way the ravaged and occupied South, parentheses, which was ruled by blacks, could ever revolt, he was released. Oh, wait, hold up. He just threw that in there. I mean, in parentheses, he just says, which was the South, which was ruled by blacks. And I said, wait, he just threw it. He didn't even try and prove it or nothing. He just said it as if like this is just common knowledge. And I seen it mentioned in other books, talking about carpetbaggers, talking about how the South was ruled by black people. So someone else, see, what happened was that we had a plantation system already here, the Moors set up over here, where we had Europeans on it. And what happened was that they just took over the slave system that we already had, they just reversed it. And we became the slaves, the prisoners of wars and the slaves. So they just took over what was already established. This is why a lot of the ones who already managed the planet just became overseers. Just doing what they've always been doing, but now they're giving the fruits of their labor to the European because they were defeated in particular wars or battles. All right? And there was something else that I wanted to, Here, all right, let me skip this right here. In this lesson also, I have a series of pictures in here. And this was a motif, and they constantly did this. They constantly showed pictures of famous European generals or leaders or whatever up front, and in the background you see a little more in the background, as if he's like some little servant or something like that. In reality, the European you see up in the front was the student of that little Moor you see in the background, who they portraying as a little servant. This was a motive, but they could not reveal who it was that was teaching them this science, because our heads would have been taken by the sword for teaching it to them. So we put them on the sword and told them not to reveal the secret. So you see, here's a picture of Peter the Great, and you see a Moor in the background, looking over his shoulder. That's the teacher. This is a student up front here. And you see another picture here of George Washington. You can't really see it from now. I don't expect you to see it, but I'm just going to show it. The family of George Washington, and here over in the corner, you see a brother back here. In the corner, in the shadows, back in the corner, there's a brother back there. Here's a picture of George Washington, and here's Prince Whipple in the back with a turban, and a feather in a turban. Now check this picture. Now, here's Prince Whipple, and back of him with a turban on. I just want to show you this picture. Where's that? Here's a picture of Noble Drew Ali with a turban, with a feather in it. And here's a picture, and they look almost similar. Prince Whipple with a turban and a feather. And it was said that what? George Washington chopped down a cherry tree, which was dealing with the Moorish flag and the Moorish fez, and put it into a conservatory and hid it there. And who was it that reclaimed it? Noble Drew Ali. So it's a strange coincidence that it's as if Noble Drew Ali is looking over his shoulder, saying, I'm seeing what you did, but I'm going to come back at a later date and reclaim it. You know, and what they said, the Moors practice reincarnation, right? Here it go, right here. It's right there. Here's another picture of General Lafayette, and here's the Moor in the back here. So wait a minute. Why is all these pictures of these famous white people and a Moor in the background? There's something deeper to this. You know what I'm saying? You see, and here's a picture of John Trumbull, Lieutenant Governor, and his Negro servant in the back. And you see the same motive throughout. This was a motive where those who know understood that, and back at him, that was his teacher, who was teaching that European that was in front. And now some people say Ben Bey, the Moors, who told them they traitors. Why they did that? They're not traitors. Those were the Moors who stood for the true principles of what the Moorish civilization was about, and they rebelled against the Moorish Empire, which had got corrupt and began to enslave people, and the rulers, the sultans, got greedy and began to give the people Islamism, which was religious mystery and spook god worship. Instead of giving them the signs of mathematics from 0 to 9, zodiac and geometry, that was hidden. And that was considered like taboo. That was considered bad. And you had to deal with the religious mystery part, because they understood that religion is a form of mass control, or so that the Moorish Empire had got corrupt, hid the truth from the people, and began to enslave the people. So then you had a series of Moors who stood for the truth of what the Moorish Empire was about, and they said, well, you know what we're going to do? We're going to use the Europeans as a tool to overthrow the wicked Moorish Empire. See, our ancestors did things long time ago that will come to fruition at a later date. Them documents that you see the European with, that was given to them. All that knowledge was given to them. There's a lesson here in dealing with Big Ben Bay where they talk about this mystery man that shows up at the sign of Declaration of Independence. They said the sign of Declaration of Independence, Independence Hall, whatever, they had the doors locked, guards downstairs, everything. So they over there, up there arguing, you know, they scared, they really scared to declare their independence. We gonna kill and all this stuff like that, you know. And then I think that's one time when they say we don't hang together, we don't hang along, or something like that. Anyway, they fussing whether or not they're gonna sign this document. The document's there. They're like, we gonna get killed. All of a sudden, the man stands up. Nobody, how do you get in there? And he says, sign that document. And then he goes to a long list of why they should sign that document. And when he finished, all of them ran to the table to sign the Declaration of Independence. When he turned around, the man was gone. And all through the history of the United States, you will always see these mystery people who are behind the scenes doing certain things, and the white people up front taking the credit for it. The Declaration of Independence, those things were put together. That's for us to use now. So that when we step up to the USA Society, that we declare our independence from you, and say, well, what right you had to declare their independence? You did the same thing back then. In the list of abuses that you gave to justify you declaring it, we got a list 10 times longer than that to justify our claim. And if what we are doing now is invalid, then what you did back then is invalid. See, we got to know how to use the same documents that they use. We can use the same things to do what we got to do in this time, because when our ancestors put them things together, they really put it together for us in this day and time. And this is why they was told, sign that thing. Because my descendants in the future will be able to use that. I was talking with Brother Hakim, about the importance of land and deal with land. And I'm going to work with Brother Hakim on that, of us securing land, because, see, land, nature, that's the foundation of our spirituality. Our spirituality is nature. You're never going to be truly spiritual people while you're walking out here on concrete, and you never really make contact with the earth. Sometimes you just got to go out there, put your feet up, and establish that contact. We got to study the plants and all these things that our ancestors used at one time. When you go out, there's so much right out here. Me and the brother, we went out. There's so much stuff right in your own backyard that you don't even realize. You got, it's wilting now, but you got yellow dye. It's right outside this building, just grows wild everywhere. And this is one of the best brook purifiers you can use. You get that root, chop it up, dry it out, you drink that, that will purify your blood. And it's also a good source of iron. So when women, after the menstrual cycle, whatever, they lose a lot of blood and iron, this will replenish it. You got plantain leaf. Grows wild everywhere. It's right outside the building also. And usually when I go into the woods, I usually pick up a little bit of this, because this is good, like if you happen to get a bee sting or snake bite or anything like that, just put it right on there. You're all right. Any kind of cut, wound, anything. So I always keep some of this with me when I go into the woods. Also, if I know I'm going to be going on a long hike or whatever, I put some in the bottom of my shoes. That's what our ancestors did right here. When they were going on long journeys, they put this in the bottom of their shoes, and their feet won't get tired. It draws it out, and you take it out. The leaf is all black. It drew all that out of you. You see? So this is very important also. You got chickweed. Goes all out there. Good for your skin. You make a tea, you wash your skin with it. Good for your skin. Also, we found out there, you got a whole bunch of you got scallion, wild onions, just bunches of it out there. You ain't got to go to the store buy no scallion. You go right in your backyard. It's right there. Throw it up in there. It's right there. Wild scallion right there. You got, this is just some of the stuff. Shepherd's purse, all out there. All that's out there. There's so much stuff out there. This is what we got to get back into. When where I'm at up in New York, I know all the spots. I got many different spots out in the woods and next to nature. When I want to be high, I go to certain places where I'm 1,000 feet high above the waters, just meditating. I got places down in the valley, places deep in the forest or whatever. All that stuff is right there. When riots break out and FEMA comes in effect or whatever, they close on them stores, you got food sitting right out there. For instance, the birch tree. The inner bark is emergency food. You can live off it. Get back in tune with that land, because that will save you in the days to come. That will You know how much biological, chemical warfare they wage on us daily? They have cars that drive through Harlem that have chemical, biological things set up to the exhaust system. As they driving through, they just hitting you with it. When I go into the woods, that's what purifies. As I'm walking through the bush, the plants, all of it is just drawing all the impurities out of you. When you tune in with that, you got to tune in with nature. She will reveal all of her secrets to you. There's so much out there. It's incredible. I bring my sons out there, and I teach them, But we went out there, we found some white oak bark. And what I do, see, when you go to the plants, you don't just go and snatch the plant up. A man by the name of Rudy Duckett up in New York City, Brother Abdul Rashad Hakim, he took me out there and taught me a lot of these things. He taught me how to deal with it. When you go to a plant, and you want it for a particular ailment, you're supposed to go up and stroke the leaves and tell it what you need it for. Say, I need your leaves for so and so and so and for. And the plant will fill you out and send to the leaves the chemicals that you need in the proportions that you need it in. When you just run up on a plant, you just bum rush the plant to start the plant gets nervous. It draws all its energies into the roots. So all you're doing is picking leaves that have no potency, don't have nothing in it. There's certain words, certain prayers, certain words of power that you say to plants to get the most potency out from it. You ask the plant's permission. So I teach my sons, whenever they get an ailment, let's say one of them got a rash or whatever, I take them out to the yellow dot, I let them pick it themselves, and I let them stroke the plant, tell the plant what they need it for. And you don't destroy the plant, you just try and pick enough that you need Because I told him, I said that same tree or plant could be used for many generations. So that my children know that when they get a headache, they go to this particular tree. When their children, they all know that when I just go on my back and go to that tree. This is the relationship that we had, and the plant took care of us because it said, look, I'm going to give to you because I know you're going to preserve me. You need me because I'm going to work with you. And this is what we got to get back into this time. We got to evolve and develop technology. We are being called upon the world today. We at 144,000. We got to realize who we are, reclaim our nationality, and realize who we are. Deal with more science. More science encompasses everything. You could deal with every science, any science, and that's more science. In the Moors, there's no such thing as, nah, brother, we don't deal with that, now-minded, dogmatic type of approach. Nah, we do the science to everything in life. Everything in life. And it's important to get in tune with nature because it will save your life. You will know what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, what you should do to save yourself from that. And I'm just learning myself, but I'm into it. I mean, in my car, I got my machete down underneath there, I got my shovel, I got everything in there. I'm going to work, just like countryman. I go in there, I just get into it. I just love it. I stay in there sometimes a whole day, and I can't even describe it. You just got to experience it. And this is what we want to work on in terms of getting land, building retreats, just having things where we can go out there and just meditate. It'll cleanse you. It'll help you overcome all your problems. It'll recenter you, refocus you. Sometimes you got to step outside of your situation to understand your situation. Sometimes I'm in the woods, and I'm like 1,000 feet high, and I see New York City just like this. And I'm looking at it. I say, boom. All right, here I am. I'm in there. I got children. I'm doing this and that. I can see what's going on. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes when you're in it, you can't see the forest for the trees. You got to step outside of it so you can say, boom, this is what's happening. And then when you go back in it, you're more better prepared to deal with it. You see, we got to develop a technology that's in harmony with nature, that doesn't destroy it, but that's balanced with it. This society's out of balance. Technology's all up here, and society's down here. The highest crime rate, places like New York, you got more people killed in 1 year that's killed in these different wars that's happening in the Middle East and all this stuff like that. And there's no stated declaration of war, but more of us is dying in these cities. More of us is dying in these cities. So we got to wake up and realize what's going on. Time is but short. You know, those of us, I myself, I'm content. Just a simple way of life. Things I enjoy don't cost money. It don't cost money for me to go in the woods and meditate, take my children there, let them explore it and enjoy it and so on and so forth. It don't cost money to do those things. I'm content with that way of life. And everything else is extra. The cities, all the stuff will fall apart. I'll be content with that. Return back to nature. Return back to square one. So once we know that, that will be your insurance. So that anything that may happen, you will be prepared to deal with. It's not okay. You know, they were able to do what they were able to do because of certain things that we did that sort of set us up for it. Because, like I said, what goes around come around. Certain divine energies wasn't working for us. This is why they were able just to march in and do certain things. And our divine talismans and sacred things just wasn't working the way it used to work. Because if we had just certain things that deprived it of our power, deprived ourselves of our power, and this set us up for them to be able to do what they were able to do.
Certain things.
In returns of conquerors. In other words, they rose up. We had them in slavery. And, you know, I don't get into people about how their slavery was worse. Slavery is slavery. I don't get to which is worse. We had certain dungeons, certain places in Britain stuff, we had them in dungeons, chained down in there. We sold their women stark naked in chains to different hounds. So I'm not going to get a capacity of which is worse and better. We have to recognize where, you know, you can't overcome, you cannot evolve yourself until you recognize the mistakes that you have made and overcome that. You see what I'm saying? So this is also important for us to understand so that we won't make the same mistake over again. You see what I'm saying? Because they say those who don't know this is doing to repeat it. You see what I'm saying? So this is why they were able to do what they was able to do. It was almost, you know what it was like? It was almost like a chess game on a global scale in regards to the Crusades and this fight between the so-called Muslims and Christians. On this side of the board, you had king, queen, castle, or rooks or whatever, you know, rank and file. On this side, you had king and queen. Christianity, you know, this was what the whole chess thing was really about. And then you notice, now we were the most powerful at that time. So we said, we let y'all make the first move. And you see in chess, white always makes the first move. Now, we had the upper hand, but then the tables was turned. and the situation that we had them in, they now have us in that situation. This is why some of the things that they did to get themselves out of, we find ourselves now doing. And in regards to the first question, the significance of Moor, the Moorish is the dispensation of civilization. All these other things are different sub-nationalities. So you got Washington Moors, you got Seminole Moors, you got Ethiopian Moors, you got so-and-so Moors. These are sub-nationalities, but the whole picture in terms of civilization was Moor. The word Moor did not originate with Greeks, white people. People may think that white Greeks or white Romans or something like that, because first of all, the language Latin originated with us, first of all, in terms of looking at Latin terminology, and second of all, the word Moorish civilization came from the last high priest of the Moabite civilization, Moor Luakinil, who gave the technology and everything, the knowledge from the previous civilization of Moor and Atlantis to his son Yaqub or Jacob, and then they perfected the science of mathematics going from 0 to 9, which today they call Arabic numerals, zodiac and geometry, and then we set out to re-educate the rest of the human family at planet Earth to the civilization. And being that we were navigators, we were the main dispersers of civilization on the planet. And we came in contact with the best that each civilization had to offer and used the best parts for ourselves. This is why Moor can never be narrow-minded and dogmatic and say you only can do it this way or that way. You see what I'm saying? We studied this time, and we draw the best part for ourselves.
For intellectual references, you need to get the books on James Churchward.
Signs and symbols.
Of mute, cosmic forces of mute. Different ones on James Churchward book also is compiled in the Mysteries of the Mexican Pyramid by Peter Tompkins. It deals with James Churchward's particular work on music.
Oh, you just brought us in. Let me just throw this in there since you just brought that up. In that very same book, they speak about a man by the name of Augustus Leplongeon, who wrote a book called Queen Mu and the Egyptian Sphinx. And his whole theory was that the civilization was brought from this hemisphere and then brought abroad. The reverse of what they were putting forth at that time, and he was castigated for that. And then up in New York City, I went to look for that book. And there was only one library that had that book in City College. And I went there to go get that book, and sure enough, it was missing. It was missing. It was lost, stolen. They done pulled it off, and as we start to get more of this information, they're gonna begin pulling more of this stuff off. This is why it's important for us to preserve what we can.
I have a question. When you were talking about the decapitation in Mexico, and
Right.
you have a reference of Moors and Illuminati like they were one and the same, but everything I read now is Illuminati.
It's negative.
Bad guys, and they're negative.
I know.
Trying to take over now, so
They have to,
part of the bad guys.
what I'm gonna do, the next lecture I'm gonna get into the connection between Moors, Illuminati, and the New World Order. And I don't have all my materials here on that subject right now, so.
Are they the bad guys now?
No, the original Illuminati, or illuminated ones, are our ascended masters, our people. You see what I'm saying? But there's certain things that took place that we got a different twist on things, you know what I'm saying? And what I want to do, when I'm bringing other information, I'm going to put a different spin on things, even things that you know regards the Federal Reserve, and so on and so forth. There may be even a deeper aspect to all that.
Well, they're supposed to be behind this New World Order that they're trying to bring in, right?
Right. See, it ultimately goes back to us. I don't really want to get to it. I don't have my materials now, you know what I'm saying? I don't want to open up a can of worms. I can't prove it with different things right now, but I'm going to say that for the next lecture. Just by show of hands, how many people would like to attend or would attend that lecture? I want to know if the people are interested. All right, well, then the next one I'll do, hopefully in a month's time, will be on that particular subject. All right.
From a time aspect, a lot of information, like you're saying, we need to do this before they pull it, this and that. Well, what kind of time are we looking at before we have to get our own act?
But what I suggest that we need to do is, in the Moors, you know, we have in New York City we have a structure, and that's like the last lesson of the lesson here, where we get into the structure of our government and so on and so forth. And what we need to do is reclaim our Moorish nationality. See, you ask somebody, what's your nationality? African. There's no nationality called African. Africa is a continent made of many nationalities, many nations. There's no nationality called African. Afro-American. Afro's a hairstyle. Your nationality is Afro-American. we got to be clear about this, because when you look in the Black's Law Dictionary, nationality means your political and legal status. If you don't know that, you're not sure, then you don't really know what your political and legal status is. Then anybody can do anything they want with you. You have no real legal status. You see what I'm saying? Nationality is key. With your nationality comes certain inherited birthrights, namely self-determination, the right to govern yourself. The different states, you have the federal government and you have the United States society. The original federal government was designed by our forefathers. It was taken over, and the de facto federal government was set up by the Union State Society. The different states were set up by the white people united and took it over and set up a de facto government. The different states, the several states of the Union, were all their constitutions. They have their own constitutions, but based on the Magna Carta, which was a Christian code of conduct, based on their particular custom, common law custom practices and usages. We need to come together, put together a governmental structure and staff it. Have brothers in charge. This is what we're striving to do in New York City. I'm the WISE team. I'm the head of the Department of Education. We have another brother that we're putting in the head of the Department of Transportation for ourselves, our own court system, and so on and so forth. So therefore, we will step to the USA side and say, look, when we reclaim our nationality, we have thereby declared our independence from you, the Union State Society, and we are now governing ourselves according to our common law, custom, practices, and usages. You have no jurisdiction over us. In any court of law, before a court of law can proceed, it has to establish jurisdiction over the person or subject matter. If you establish a jurisdiction over person matter, it cannot legally proceed. It cannot arbitrarily assume jurisdiction over you. When you have clear proof, you have your own constitution, your own nationality, stating clearly who you are. You see what I'm saying? So what we need to do is, and it's not for everybody, you know, the masses is not going to happen. The masses wait to a crisis situation before they respond and do anything. So this is why you always hear everybody talk about 144,000. The first fruits is always a group of first fruits, a select few that would, and actually staff a government. You don't need masses of people. You staff it first. You establish your core system. You saw your three branches, which was perfected by Hakim Bey, executive, judiciary, legislative, and you staff different offices, and you then now get together the most eloquent speakers or whatever, and then you step to you say, I'm not asking you, to recognize me. I'm just out of courtesy. I'm just informing you of the fact. See, in law, they have what's known as the compact theory of law, which states, and that's in the 11th lesson here, is the 11th lesson of the course. I found a jewel of a book. This particular book got into the origins of the states that we call, the different colonies, and how they went from the guild system to the franchise corporate type of structure, like the West Indies companies, all that stuff like that, and then into the Commonwealth, and then from Commonwealth into the state. So it grew right out of a franchise, right out of a franchise. And what it was a group. See, in the compact theory of law, it says that when a free and sovereign individuals come together and decide to collectively govern themselves by reason of their mutual agreement, that government is valid. That's the compact theory of law. That's what they did on the Mayflower Compact. They agreed amongst themselves before they set foot on land. They said that when we get there, we will collectively govern ourselves. And that became what's known as the state of Massachusetts. So here we go again. Therefore, when we claim to govern ourselves in our government, they say, well, that's invalid. Well, half of your states is invalid there because y'all did it based on the same thing. See, we got to know how to use what they're using against them. You see what I'm saying? So what we need to do is form a government, staff it, and begin to function and stuff, irregardless of whether or not they want to recognize it or what. And we got to do what we got to do to get it recognized on a global level. If they don't recognize, there's other nations in the world that will recognize. You see what I'm saying? And then from that point on, more people begin to get attracted when they see us doing what we do. Then we can begin to claim our land and do certain things.
In order to reestablish the power over our national land and our lives that we need to learn before, we obviously have to know our history so that we can learn from our about the Hakim theory concept, and we talk about the fact that the beast is actually made by us. And then we also talk about the fact that we turn over those things that would make people like rulers of the world over to the beast that we created. You know what I'm saying? Now we're saying that it's a big reciprocity here. And what happens is that, you know, what goes around comes around. And I'm still on all that I just said. My question to you is, then, what are the specific lessons that we should learn from them to establish going on from here and not recreating that kind of disaster? You know, I want to know.
But what the goal of our ancestors when they perfected the code of the Moorish civilization, which consisted of mathematics from 0 to 9, zodiac geometry, they had a vision of a world order, of a one world order, where the people were educated, were given certain tools. For instance, the science of mathematics from 0 to 9, the zodiac and geometry. These are tools that, when applied to nature, will reveal the secrets of nature to you and show you the correct relationship that you need to establish with it. So their vision was that once the human family of planet Earth are properly re-educated to this science, you don't need a police force. You don't need a priest, a rabbi, imam standing over them telling them what to do. They will be able to exist under one law. Do as you will, as long as you do not infringe upon another person's right the same, and they will be educated and responsible enough to live under that one law. When you see a civilization like this civilization with hundreds of codes, laws, statutes on the books, that shows you that's a decadent society. Because they got to tell you and they got to force you to do what you know is right. But when you properly educate the people and give them the truth, they will do what's right. When I was in New York City teaching the board education, I came in there with my fez on, and you know how the board education system is. I was in there and I was teaching you sciences about the mind, about dreams, about the melanin. They were so hungry for it. When the bell would ring, they didn't want to leave. I had to actually force them to leave so the next class would come in. The youth, they are hungry for this truth. They're hungry for this knowledge. But if they're in the state that they are now, it's our fault. Because we did not give them what they need to know. We did not give them the proper tools, so they out there killing each other off. You see what I'm saying? So the ultimate goal was to establish a civilization based on universal principles, as opposed to now-minded religious dogma. See, all the different religions are based on the same universal principles. They just circumscribe it with different rituals and ceremonies, and then they argue amongst themselves over the different. Oh, you got to pray this way. You got to do this way. Yeah. See, you know, but then you miss the forest for the trees. What is the true purpose of all of this? Of all those things? They're all based on the same universal principles. So the purpose of the Moors was to bring us back to universal principles, and then you could have variations on how it's expressed. But that's just showing you the truth from many different angles. The beauty of the truth is like a bouquet of flowers or a diamond with many facets. So the lesson that we need to learn is that we got to get beyond religious mystery. You see, you had two systems here. Religious mystery, and you got what they call masonry, which in reality deals with the evolution of man, you see what I'm saying, to its God-like, the unfolding of its God-like potential. Whereas the other suppresses man under the guise of morality. This is where you get the whole thing with Cain and Abel. And Cain is made to be seen like if he's the bad guy. Cain is the agriculturalist, you see what I'm saying, dealing with the fruits of the earth. And Abel is the shepherd, the nomadic one, offering up the meat sacrifice. Now, what happened was that Abel represents religious mystery, whereas Cain represents masonry. When he so-called killed Abel, he was exiled to where? The land of Nod, which really translates to node or anode. What's the opposite of an anode? Cathode, catholic, cathode. So you got the anode system, you got the cathode. One deals with the evolution of man to his fullest God-like potential, so that he can live under that one law, and the other deals with the suppression of man under the guise of religious morality. That's the true big brother that tries to control every aspect of your life through a priesthood, when really The goal of our ancestors was to give you the proper tools and the universal sciences that you need, and then you go out and navigate the course of your own life, because you're a navigator. And I'm so busy navigating my ship, I ain't got time to navigate your ship. So let me give you the tools of navigation, the tools that you need to navigate the course of life, and you go on and navigate the course of your own life. And that was the ultimate goal. So what we were supposed to learn was that we was not supposed to get involved with enslaving anybody, hiding knowledge, hiding the truth from people so that you can enslave them and exploit them. We was not to break ourselves into different religious factions based on various religious dogma and religious mystery of different varieties. That we was to deal with universal science and principles and establish a sound relationship with nature and the earth. That was the goal, and that is what we were supposed to learn. That White House that was set up by Ben Bey in terms of universal principles of science of government was supposed to be the true United Nations, where the people of the planet were supposed to be guided and represented and guided by the true science. In our structure of our government, we have what's known as the Rothschild Baruch, or the Star Zodiac Chamber. That was supposed to be a part of the Washington, D.C., where certain calculations were made in regards to the sun, moon, and stars and its different cycles. And then our laws are based on those divine laws, not man-made codes, laws, and statutes. You see what I'm saying? But that has been left out. That's why on the back of the bill you see the pyramid the cap is separated. The body pyramid symbolizes the masses of people, and the cap symbolizes the Illuminati or the illuminated ones who know the truth. But that truth is separated from the masses, and this is why you got the state of affairs on a global level like you see now. So our job is to come together amongst ourselves, govern ourselves by universal moral science, the universal principles, and then set the example and re-educate the rest of the human family planet Earth, the 144,000, because 144 is 12 square. Which means what? We are to square off the rest of the planet with the 12 signs of the zodiac, mathematics and geometry. And then you look at the layout of the new city of Jerusalem, and all the measurements boil down to 12. Shows you that the number 12 is the key to the New World Order. And the science of the zodiac, if you properly understand it, even though it's been commercialized, if you understand that science, it will show you the perfection of government in society. Everything, economics, everything should be based on that zodiac, which we trivialize, but we don't know what we're dealing with. So that was the ultimate goal of our forefathers. Now let me say one thing, because this is a vast topic. The course that I taught was 12 sessions, and that was just laying a basic foundation. So I know in these couple hours here, you're not going to get the full content, but I'll try my best. But
Just a couple of questions. What I'm trying to understand is back to the system that we're understanding. The main irony for me is that what you're saying is that basically, I've heard you say before that like presidents, they're all like master masons or whatever, but what you're saying is that they hold the secrets that you talk about. You say they hold them right now.
They have them and they pass them down, but they don't fully understand what they have. They transmit them, they preserve them, they protect them, but don't fully understand what they have. It's like, you could have something, but if you don't know how to really truly utilize it, it is of no good to you. You know what I'm saying? I could live in a house, and under that house could be a gold mine. But if I'm not conscious, I don't know how to dig it out and get it and utilize it, then it's really of no good to me. So they have certain things, they transmit certain things, they preserve certain things, but don't fully understand what they do have. We have the key, we have the solution to it.
So you're saying like, I'm trying to couple it together. You mentioned, hey, when they see, when some of these folks in the know, right, next you be on 25th Street, see the European church, nobody see the feds, and they say, whoa, stuff like that.
They'll hit you with certain jewels. They'll give you certain things. I had certain professors in colleges, hit me off with this term, check this out or here.
But what I'm saying, man, is like just say, okay, he's wearing a vest, so he's cool, we can back off from him. But this brother standing next to him without a vest, I go ahead and kick him through all one.
Well, it's not really that simple. It's not that simple. Anybody could throw a fez up on his head. But like the elders always taught us, sincerity is everything. If you sincere in this, and you will exude it, people will just pick up on you. I ran a simple situation. I didn't have the fez on. but they was able to pick up certain things, and based on that was able. So it's more than just the feds. The feds is just outward manifestation of what you're supposed to have inside.
Well, basically, is an Asian. They say, hey, that black guy's okay. You should know.
Like I said, it's not that simple. It's not that simple. They're not gonna sit back and say he has the fez on his head, so he's okay. And
or he exudes whatever, and he's okay. And I can't mess with him, but I can mess with these over here. I'm gonna do that right in front of his face.
Right, to a degree. Like I said, it's not always that simple. But they will treat you like, for instance, like when I was doing my whole thing with the tax with the board education. You know what I'm saying? And you know, I guess the way I presented myself, they began to treat me different. I mean, I felt almost kind of uncomfortable, like, because it was like treat me almost like some kind of royal. I mean, they was giving me direct access to all the heads, like, you know, go ahead, Mr. Bey, you know, straight ahead, you know. And then when after they did everything that I asked them to do, you know what I'm saying? Then it was like, you know, I was like, you know, they went through a lot of trouble, and I was, you know, I just being the type of person I am, you know, I didn't mean to put you through so much, you know. Oh, anything to be of service to you. And what I'm saying is that it's more than just wearing a fez, you see what I'm saying? But like I said, you will be treated differently, and it's not about putting on a fez so white people treat you different or say, oh, he's, you know, a good guy or whatever. It's not about that. But I'm just saying this is just the side effects that happen, or some of the who are they, who I feel that who the European Masons are. I feel like they like my son, not my sons, Masons, Muslim sons. You know what I'm saying? Those descendants, those are the ones. Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that there are some white people who will see the hereafter. Out of all the ones, those ones who deal with that science of masonry and practice it in a true way, those are the closest ones, and those are the ones who will make it to see the hereafter, whereas the other ones will be generally wiped out. You see what I'm saying? So with regards to those European Masons who truly understand what they're dealing with, you got many in there who don't understand what they're dealing with. Some of them get in there just like a lot of black people just for status society, so they could, you know, fraternity, you know, they get in there and this one know that they're one and they get a position and status in life and get access to certain things. You know what I'm saying? Some of them they go in there seeking for true wisdom and true knowledge. You see what I'm saying? So in terms of them, those ones, like I said, are the closest ones that will survive and see the hereafter than the other ones.
I don't want to argue, but so isn't that back to tit for tat if they're going to get annihilated? I assume they're going to do annihilated.
I'll be honest with you. We don't really have to lift up a finger to annihilate. We don't have to focus on annihilating them. We just need to focus on getting ourselves together. Nature is about to genetically select them out of existence. Just the solar rays, the ultraviolet rays in of itself is about to wipe them out. They know this. We don't have to focus on killing the white people, destroying. Don't even focus on that negative emotion. Focus on building yourself up. Focus on building your government and your people, educating you. Focus on that. You know what I'm saying? We ain't got to get into negative annihilating them. It's not about them. You know what I'm saying? We give them more credit than they're worth. Forget them. Deal with ourselves. They ain't all that. By us making them be all that, oh, yeah, the white man, we got to, you know, you're going to do this. Forget them. Do what you got to do. All their weapons, they brothers and sisters say, fear for my life. We had cases where agents came to my table from Interpol, International Police. I had cops tell me the FBI considered my table a hotspot. Am I supposed to say, oh, Dad, oh, man, I'm playing low-key now, I'm low-profile now, you know what I'm saying? Nah, I know I'm dealing with a higher force, a higher science. So I do what I got to do, and don't worry about that. I had an encounter where I'm in the deep part of the woods and ran to agents with suits and ties on. Now wait, how you going to run to a white man, you in the woods, he in there with a suit and tie on? I knew they was on a mission. And I looked him right in the eye. And I knew I was dealing with a high force. And you know what he did? He got nervous, lit a cigarette, got in his car and drove away. And this happened on a number of occasions. But I know I'm dealing with a higher force. I've been trained by Yoruba priests, Ethiopian priests, Egyptian priests, many different ones that trained me and done certain things in order to protect. I got my words are working. You see what I'm saying? I just got to do what I got to do and don't worry about all that.
Well, and what you were just mentioning about the mothership and what he's talking about what's going to happen to white people. But at the same token, you know, anytime black folks do try to come together and get their act together, there is this amount of resistance from the white community, regardless of our focus. And you know, like the Waco type thing is a good example. You know, as well as like the LA riots, where they pretty much prepared.
This is why we gotta do certain things. Being that we know this already, we just take certain precautions to take care of that, and we move in a certain way strategically. It's like a military maneuver, you know what I'm saying? It's like the art of war. Make a noise over here and attack from this side. You know what I'm saying? We got to move strategically. It's not. We were ancient masters of the art of war. They study Hannibal stuff to this day. So it's not. There's no obstacle that we cannot overcome in this day and time. We apply ourselves. You know, we can sit back and say, "Oh, this is my habit. They're gonna do." Let's just do the work. Let's just do it, and everything else will fall into place. We say up in the Great Seal that until we activate our government, which is, we have set up like what we call the Hex Alpha, some call it 6-point star, whatever, and staffing and activating our government in and of itself is a talisman. It's the activation of a talisman. We will reactivate certain energies and forces that will come into play. But us doing what we got to do, don't sit back and wait for a mothership to come and kill white people. No, do what you got to do. You make the first move, and then the rest will come into effect. Oh, just rather than you might think.
Yes, this when, how could I tap into it, or any individual?
All right, I myself, I taught a course, and it consists of 12 packets, and each packet comes with an audio tape and a written lesson, and this is actually the class itself, so you're going to hear the students in the back asking questions, you know, making comments, so on and so forth. And you know, I personally did this in the city because at the time when I wanted to know so much about the Moors, but there was no formal class, nothing formally given on it. You know, just something you hear from a brother out here on the street, something from here. I was like, yo, I want something I can sink my teeth into. So I seen the need, so I said, let me fill it. Instead of me complaining, saying, oh, I ain't got no school, this is whack. I said, well, don't complain about it, let's do it. So I said, look, I had a background in education. I said, let me put the course together. So I went, I took the basic lessons that the elders gave us. Some of them was only like 1 or 2 pages long. And I went to the extra research to add the extra documents to support it. You know, so you come through the course. At the end of the course, you receive a certificate. This is the way we've been doing it up in New York City. You receive a certificate from the Great Seal Department of Education. From there, if you want to go further, you could take the course and say, well, look, it was a good educational experience. I don't want to go no further than that. Or if you want to go further, we help you get your nationality card, your constitution, and all the other documents we have from that point on. You have access to all that. And now you come in this government, this association, as a free and sovereign, more as an equal, and now you can sit down together with us and we can evolve this together. You know, because not no one man know it all. I don't by no means know this man don't know it all, but all of us together know it all. You know, so if you want further information, if you want to look at happen, what seemed based on what the research I did up to so far, it seems like the conspiracy was saying like I said, they had to graft themselves onto already existing history. So like I said, the original people in that place in Rome was the Etruscans, the original people in Greece or whatever, might seem the Minoan civilization. So what they did seemed to me like was graft themselves on it, and then you know, like during the so-called Renaissance, they were doing sculptures that almost exactly resembled the sculptures that were done in Greece and Rome. And they were passing these sculptures that were being done at that time as Greek and Roman sculptures to make you think that these people were white people back then in those lands. You see what I'm saying? So it seems like these were students, some of them were actually students of us, of the Moors and stuff like that. They were writing, they were using these different pen names, and it was like a game, it was like a thing they was doing amongst themselves. You know, giving themselves an artificial sense of antiquity, which they didn't have.
So only Europeans can book these books of Roman empires. You got thousands. You go to the library and pick up at least 1,000 of them.
See, another thing I found out too is that Harris really was intricately connected with various fictional writers at the time, like the one who wrote Tom Sawyer, yeah, and what's the name, Edgar Allan Poe and all of them. At one point when Edgar Allan Poe was down out, he lent them money. So here you have fictional writers that's able to write fictional stories that seem like reality. So why couldn't you hire the help of these fictional writers to draw up a whole fictional concocted history? You see what I'm saying? So it gets, see, what's going to take? It's going to take more of us. You know, the looking. We got different brothers out there researching different areas that make sonic connection, this connection, and we got to pull it all together because if this is true, which it is, this is going to totally overturn their whole paradigm. Their whole thing is going to be overturned if this is right and it's that, which it is.
What about the ancient Roman structures?
The different temples that was built by us. Ain't no Europeans built those things. Those things built by us, man. Those things are definitely built by us. All in the Greek. All the megalithic structures that was built by us, because those things are actually books in and of themselves. All of that was us. The Europeans is recent, very recent. Very recent. I'm talking about they just recently got large, 1850 something. I mean, before that it was nothing. New jacks. You know what I'm saying? New jacks. That's why the world's in disarray, because it's like a child with a gun in his hand. They babies. And what did the Egyptians tell them? You Greeks or Europeans in this case, they was really they substitute word Greek. You are babies in the knowledge that we possess, and you will always be children in the knowledge that we possess. It didn't say like one day you will mature and all of a sudden you will be like full 360 like us. You know, you may learn to do like us and act contrary to your nature. You see what I'm saying? It's like we are now acting contrary to our nature. We have learned to act contrary to our own nature. You know, so that that's what happened with that. Yes, there's a book I published called Deeper Than the Abyss, and that altogether I published about 75 different pamphlets. They're all $3, $4, $5, and these are supplemental materials that go along with the course. That just supplement it and show you different areas on a little deeper, let's say. And there's the one Deeper Than the Abyss talks about a mind control facility that they had on Montauk, Long Island, with the so-called Philadelphia experiment, and it was underground. And in that particular pamphlet, he says underneath the United States is a vast underground tunnel network. He doesn't go into detail, but he drops it right there that there is a vast underground tunnel network, and it's known. They got cabins, they got things that go for miles underground. They could go for so deep, you know what I'm saying? But they are fully aware of the existence of this.
What is
the underground tunnel system that we built? Well, based on my research, it seems as if these tunnel systems were for two reasons. See, it seems as if there was 3 divisions of us. And this gets back into the so-called Greek mythology, which is really, dealing with us. They break the 3 main ones down to 3 divisions. And it seems as if the ones, when they refer to Zeus, the heavenly ones, these seem like the ones who didn't come down to this planet and cultivate this planet like we did. When they talk about Poseidon, those are the ones of us that was dealing with the land and the seas. And when they talk about Hades, they're talking about the ones that was dealing with the underground cities. So really, there seems to me to be 3 divisions of us. Now we operate on all levels, all 3 levels. This is whether we realize it or not, whether you're conscious of it or not. We really function on all 3. I have a theory. I believe, or I should say, I know that some of us. I was telling the brother about it, as if we live altered lives. Some of us, when you go to sleep at night, you think you're just going to sleep. Some of you out there piloting those vehicles that's up there, but you realize it or not. And I had cases where my wife told me of dreams where I'm talking about sleep. I'm talking different language, saying different formulas of mathematics, and saying different longitudes and latitudes. You see? So we got to realize who we are. Some of us, you exist in sometime on more planes than you think you are. So it seemed as if there was 3 divisions. Hades symbolizing those ones that was dealing with the underground cities. Shambhala, when you go up into the North Pole, you keep on going to cities inside there. Those of us who were dealing with on the surface, and those of us who never came down, who said, y'all going to one day forget who you are, and we're going to come back and have to rescue you one day to make you realize you're going to get so immersed into the flesh that you're going to forget who you are, the divine entities that you are, because we cultivated this planet, and some say we came here from the star system Sirius. And we came here and cultivated this planet. It's like you cultivate a garden. And I heard it said that this planet, the Moors refer to as the treasure chest of the universe, containing all the species and genetic codes for everything out there. This is why you got different beings come here just to refurbish their genetic code, because it's all here. When you go look at the deepest parts of the ocean, you see fishes, you see animals that look like they're from other worlds. Jellyfish with lights going around, look like UFOs. Some of these species may actually be the basis of a whole system of life in other solar systems, right here on this planet. You got worlds, millions of worlds right here on this planet, right here. And this is why the elders told us, they said that if you want to measure ceiling, but it's too far, you measure the floor. So if you want to understand all that's out there, look right down here on the earth. And I'll take one more question, then I'm going to close on out. Anybody else who didn't? All right. Why is he not a trader? because he's the one who perfected the science of government, and he's the one, see, he was the true science of the Moors. And like I said, what he did was use the Europeans to overthrow the wicked Moorish Empire at that time. He's the one spoken of in the book of Revelation as the third horse, which is riding with the scales in his hand. Justice. This is why we refer to him as Justice Ben Bey Emmanuel Muali. You know, he's the one who came to, you know, balance the scales in a sense, you could say.
There's another explanation to all that too. If this beast has done this much with us with civilization, imagine how treacherous he could be if he wasn't giving some tools. Just like another book I was telling him was Ernest Scott, People with a Secret, where the actual Moors actually set masonry up in business, not only to illuminate this white man to the point that he could be civilized, but they understood, like you said, by losing some of this, they had to civilize a person, so when we got under the feet of this person, he would be a certain point that he wouldn't be the same barbarous person, but he just eat us all up.
That book is key, People with a Secret. That's going to be a key part of the next year. I was going to use a lot of posts from that. That People with a Secret book is deep. All right, so at this point, you know, I have, like I said, I have a couple of courses left, and if you want any further information, I'll try and, you know, get you further information, and basically that's it. I thank everybody for coming. Peace.